The first session of New England Drupal Camp, sessions day. A lot of people made the comparative higher ed summit trainings yesterday. My name is Ben Mellinson. This is the placeholder slide so people know they're in the right room. This room has been updated from where it was on the schedule. So, the Guard Technology Collective, which I'm part of. I've been a worker and owner at the worker-owned Guard Cooperative since 2006, designing when there's not a module for that. How to make and maintain a new Drupal module. I'm Ben Mellinson, Marisa Donarte, help a lot behind the scenes. And together we are 1/3 of Agar. You can reach us at ask@agar.co. And send complaints directly to me, heckling posts to Mastodon and social.co at MLNCN. That handle is me most places on the internet for quite a while now. All right. So, what do you do when there's not a module for that? Make your own. It's easy. What could go wrong? So, say for example, and let me just say that if anyone has any specific questions or anything, really ask them at any time. And I judge them. Yes.
I'm turning off.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, thank you. All right, we'll go back to all the other slides. What can go wrong? So say you're creating a site where people can relive great literature that may have been inspired by a near global pandemic. You've already created an excellent content type under structured content, content type called Frankenstein. But somehow the usual save button at the bottom is just not communicating what you want when people are creating Frankenstein content. .info.yaml file named after your module. And give it a description that's optional. You need to give it a type. Really, all you need is a name and the core version requirement. When I do core version requirements, I am done like updating the core version requirements every like 6 to 12 months. So I've started just being like, you know what? This is a simple module. It's going to be good until Drupal 12 at least. So I just list them all. And then the actual code. Awesome. So scroll when I scroll, just not scroll when I scroll. All right. All the important stuff is in frame anyhow. We're setting the submit value to reanimate. So there we go, the module. I think we're done here. If anyone has any idea, the next 40 minutes, let me know. So .info files are not PHP. They cleverly indicate this by not starting with PHP. The .module file, even though it doesn't have a PHP extension, is and this is like classic Drupal. This is like a module. This module would work more or less in like Drupal back to 4.7, which was a different scheme. All right, where to put the files? So it's a custom module. You're going to want it to be in your web root, and then so usually it's like /web and then modules and then custom and then the name of your module, a folder named after the name of your module. And there we go. Usually once you enable your module. So this is the most important slide in the session. After you have put your code there, enable your module, or you're going to spend a long time trying to figure out what the heck is happening with your code not working. So drush-y enable, and then the name of your module, and that matches not the name that you put here, but the actual file name. It just gets it. So the file name, the folder should match, but the file name of Frankenstein.info to YAML, the first part, that's the name of your module. That's how you can enable it in Drush. So drush-y and Frankenstein, and boom, it change that. So now you know how to make a module and enable it. So yeah, you're all sitting there thinking, sure, that's easy if you know the exact words to put in that file, and you're absolutely right. So we're going to talk about how to figure all of that out. So it's often said that Drupal is a box of Legos that you can build just about anything you want with. Sometimes these Legos have been put together for you, like commerce module, and sometimes not. So the module you need is the Lego pieces that have not been put together yet. But a few basic approaches in Drupal give you a lot of power. So 2 secrets, one's good news, one bad news. The good news is that now you know where to paste stuff. You know where to put files. So you can go on the internet and look for random stuff and know where to paste it. So Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange, or anywhere else online. But yes, this is the same family of sites that's been helping developers exit Vim for this is an old screenshot. But you know enough to be dangerous, and I hope I have definitively slayed or slewn the mythology that module making is like a mystic domain of Drupal druids. Bad news, that simple form alter already has hidden gotchas, like the simplest module you can think of. As written, it only applies to create forms, node add forms, not the edit forms. I think it's in the spirit of the module that it only says reanimate for the initial creation of the content. But that's something that you sort of have to know, sort of see in examples in other modules. And there's just a dozen variations of that humble form alter hook, and all are valid. But with our dirty secrets, on with the show. So the prelude we just did, how to make a module. Act 1 will be how to not make a module, how not to make a module. Really more how to not make a module. Act 2 is how not to have to make a whole module, and then Act 3 is how to figure out how to make a module, and Encore is how to contribute your module. So the hierarchy of code usage, in my opinion, is that this is it, and you stop at the first layer configurable to your needs. So if you can use Drupal core code, excellent. If you can use a broadly supported contributed module, great. If you can use a less supported or patched contributed module, go with that. And then code you have written and contributed. And at the very bottom is custom code you have written and hidden from the work. And the reason for that is covered a couple more times, but code that other people have seen, had a chance to contribute to, is going to be better. You can opt into security coverage when you have a contributed module, and all kinds of things that help protect your site and keep it good into the future. Oh, screwed up my images, but when not to make a module, it's you can do it all the time, and don't do it when there's an easier way to do it. When you can find a contributed module to do it, or should it be a template? If it's very specific to display on your site, should do it in the theme layer. If it's all data, then you might ever want to switch themes, or you want to allow site builders or site managers to change settings. It's usually best in the module. So, that's step 1, the alternatives to a module. Template override, string override. There are a couple modules for string overrides, or they can go in settings.php. So if you wanted to change all of your save buttons to say something else, that's something you could do in a string quite easily. And then ECA and event condition action has been sort of the successor to rules in modern Drupal. Now rules has a full release for Drupal 10. I still like the architecture of ECA better, but it'll be very interesting to see we have 2 powerful, like theoretically no code modules. ECA is not necessarily going to be faster than making a module, especially if you already know how to make a module, but it does have advantages that it exposes the logic to non-developers better, and sort of has a growing ecosystem of things. But yeah, when building a Drupal site, there's a module for that. It can be the sweetest words you can hear. So let's start there. So screenshot here is, yeah, that screenshot is out of date. Just go directly to drupal.org/project_module. I don't know why drupal.org makes it so hard to find the module search page, but I also had trouble finding it, and they've literally moved it around in the past like year. So drupal.org/project_module. And then on that page, and this is where like we're always doing this to look for contrib modules. And yeah, you want to generally, when you're looking for a contrib module, you filter to start to Drupal 10. And but as you're like, I'm not finding what I'm looking for, I might be in market to build my own module. You can expand the works with filter to any Drupal module, and you can change the status, which defaults the full project to include sandbox projects. Because building on a sandbox project could be a great start. And then upgrading from Drupal 7 might be a good option also. And sometimes there'll be an issue where the upgrade has actually been done, but no one's ever made a release for it, even a development branch release, so it won't show up on the works with here. So that's the first stop, and just, you know, use the search bar in this module section, use a lot of different keywords, and do the same searches on internet-wide, on the internet as a whole, with Drupal and module included as keywords, ask an IRC, or rather the modern Slack equivalents to IRC. So pound support, pound general, pound contribute, and the main Drupal Slack. And take note of everything you search for to find a module, because that is how people in the same situation as you are going to find your module. So just make sure you record all of your search queries, get it down in notes. Currently at Agaric, we are pouring our notes into LogSeq, which is a pretty cool interconnected thing. But you know, I've gone through like a lot of different note-taking systems. Our notes will be public soon. They still are at a raw notes GitLab URI that doesn't get indexed at all by the main internet, but we have even older notes up on a Drupal 6 site. So when there's a module that almost does exactly what you want, now we're in the sort of leaning into module, building a module, but doing it in a way where it remains someone else's responsibility. So contribute a patch or more modern Drupal, so port it to modern Drupal. So even if your patch is not accepted, or is there any, yeah, there's no given way to build on the module, like you can't do an alter to the module, you can fork the module and maintain your own copy. And in fact, that's sort of the standard way of contributing now with an issue fork. So that gives you your entire own Git repository. That's a copy of the main module. It lives right in the module's issues. So it lives with everything else. But here's one Agaric member, David Valdez, who's independent now, has made for the comment notify module, and laid out the issues, and then made a patch, and we would do the same thing with an issue fork now, and that patch was accepted. The strategy is not without risks. David was made a maintainer of comment notify and routinely fixed a ton of issues there himself, but it's better for everyone than to make your own module with duplicate functionality. So here we're really talking about making a module still, but not a whole module, not from the ground up. You don't have to figure out your own settings forms and everything else. You're extending something else. So be a part of something big, but not quite as big as all of Drupal. Commerce has a huge ecosystem, very configurable. If you're doing anything with taking payments, it's a good idea to build on that. I'm planning to rework one of my modules that's pretty independent to be part of the give module. I'm planning to rework to be part of the commerce ecosystem, because that's come a long way since I did the give module in like before Drupal 8 was released for one client, and then used it for several more. But we're going to try to see if we can maintain the simplicity of the experience while building on a bigger ecosystem. So that'll be a challenge. Extra field is a great utility module, and there's extra field configurable that will let you place it. So the concept of an extra field is like anytime you want to display something on your content that's hasn't been typed in as a field by a content editor, whether you're combining two fields or pulling in information from other things. Extra field is the concept in Drupal. They also call them pseudo fields, but the extra field module and its sort of ecosystem makes this a little bit easier and can give people say, like, I want to put this type of extra field on, pick which content type they want to put it on, so it doesn't litter every node display form. But we just did that, sort of extended two different modules. One was there's the type tray module, which is really cool. It just organizes content types so that when people are creating content, it's like, this is your sort of static page style content, which might not just be pages, but could be resources and a couple other things. This is your daily like authoring content that's dynamic news and the projects and that kind of thing. And then you can have sections of content. Each kind of content can get its own icon. And so we're like, okay, we've got these icons. We now want icons to be publicly facing also. So we built an extra field module called type tray display icon that takes the icon from type tray and shows it an extra field. And so building on two different modules, that module is able to do a fair amount with relatively little code. Uglier code than I'd like, so it's not in this example. But still not that much code, and it's extra field type tray module. And I am gonna have a blog post that links to most of the things mentioned here, as well as the slides from the chat. ECA, as we mentioned, and so this is like, okay, ECA is a module replacement, but so again, ECA is you're just, you're saying when this happens, I want to do this, and you can do just about anything. You can display messages on your forms, you can tell it to save a whole other node while you're saving another node. But if it's not doing something quite that you want it to do, you can write a plugin for it and plug into this basically huge ecosystem of automated workflows. And that can be pretty simple, or it can be really complex. In my case, I tried to contribute a validate plugin for it so that it would work not on just the form level, but truly the validation entity API level. And the module maintainers completely rewrote it and made it good. But that's another good reason to try to contribute. And then Search API and Friends is another great ecosystem to build on. And that's what we are going to go into in these examples. So Search API's friends include facets and the better exposed filters. It's a really powerful usage of Drupal's like Drupal has structured data, and facets exposes that structured data to the world. There is a problem with exposing that data to the world, like bots crawl all the facets and can make even a small site use way too much resources. So we're looking at contributing some fixes to that, but you can also make facets of like, you need to log in to get this power if you don't have a lot of resources and don't want to do things like automatically disabling, like after the third facet is clicked, be like, nah, you're a bot, you're just doing too much. But just facet is super powerful, but it does slow things down, or not slow things down, but it uses a lot of resources, and that's something we run into. But we're not moving away from it because it's so powerful. And so we extended the better exposed filters links module And so this is sort of the standard facet listing, where like you press the link and it immediately filters. So you could have a site where you have like, all 200 200 plus countries in the world listed as facets. And with the regular links module, like you just have all of those links showing right away. And so we built on the better exposed builders links module to filter down. So just basically add JavaScript to it to be like, when there's 200 here, we're going to show the first 10, but if you start typing, you can find any of the ones in. And you can choose to show all, just super simple filter on it. And so in like 250 lines of code altogether, we could provide a much better user experience and contribute that module, just extending another module. And so using the way better exposed filters already handles their options, so really just extending it very simply, and we can open up that code later. So the basic idea is there to look for plugin opportunities, like literally look for plugins. This will be in source plugin of whatever modules you are operating in the vicinity of. So better BEF links filter is a better exposed filter plugins. Like I said, about 250 lines altogether. And so, yeah, so we know we're extending this module called, or this submodule called BEF links. It's plugin inside better exposed filters. So we could just extract that one plugin and extend it and make our own plugin. So yeah, doing your own plugin or extending an existing plugin by copying and modifying an existing plugin is probably the highest impact to effort ratio you're going to get in making a module in Drupal. So how to figure out how to make a module. Screwed up all the images moving, but we've identified to the best of your ability that there's definitely not something out there that does what you want to do. And I personally am not an advocate of introspection at this point. Like, why am I trying to do something that no one else is trying to do? Just go ahead, do it. You want it, make it, put it out into the world. So how do you do that? You steal and keep stealing. So we'll go into detail how to do that. Sorry, yes, all right. So if you decide your module should have one of those button links that you see at the top right of a bunch of pages in Drupal's administration, you don't even need to know that those things are called action links and find a tutorial on making them. You can just go look in the code of a module, has them, grep for the label, and steal the code around it. So here, I just know it's in Drupal core somehow. So I just grepped for it all core.
Take your word for it.
Yeah, it's too hard to read, but it's grep, G-R-E-P is the command, which is going to be on Mac and Linux, and you can install it in basically any programming environment. And even when I'm using an IDE for everything else, I use grep in the regular command line when I'm looking for text in a file. I think this habit is mostly because, like, I often fail to configure the IDE to look in the downloaded code. Like, so your IDE is going to be like, you wrote this code, it's in your repo, I'm going to look at it, but like all of Drupal, all of the vendor directory, all your contrib modules, that might not be by default indexed by your IDE. And so you either need to make sure to configure that before you search for code, or just always use grep, which always works and never lets you down. So I'm searching for the words add content block in parentheses in web/core, and it gives a bunch of results. Most of the results are in tests. And tests actually can help a lot when writing a module, but I would never start there because testing is sort of its own work. So like try to get a sense of how it's being done and only look into the tests as the last resort to understand how to do something. But there will be lots of code is in tests that can help you figure out how to do things. But the very first link that has the code we're looking for is actually in block content.links.action.yaml. It's not even a PHP file. It is just a YAML file. And I look in there and it has these are the contents. So one other thing about the section that has the code we searched for is this. So now we know that Drupal has this concept of action.links.yaml, and that we can put things there by giving a route name for where the link should go, and then appears on, which this you just sort of have to figure out or know, but the appears on is more routes. And that shows up, and then it can take an actual class to modify the link. And so you copy this code, and then this is telling you exactly where the other plugin that you care about is, the plugin menu local action, block content local action, and you can copy that code too and make your action link for the module. So that's one of the examples of the building blocks of all of Drupal, but especially contributed modules. So we look at hooks. Example hooks are form alter and node insert. Plugins. We've looked at the PDF filter. We've looked at just now the local action, and formatters are common plugins that will write. And then services include the root subscriber and the event subscriber, and that's getting more advanced. But those are the sort of like how to your entryway into modifying what Drupal is doing. And so those are the broad areas to branch out into once you know what you're trying to do and you're drilling down. And so yeah, if you're doing something like a form, you are generally going to want a hook form alter if you're varying a form that already exists. So broad universe of how to figure out how to make a module, learning to learn. Drupal documentation, looking directly in Drupal contributed modules. That's usually what you want to do first, actually. And then looking into Drupal core and its modules. So first Drupal documentation, then looking at the code of contributed modules, and then looking at Drupal core and its modules. Setting up a debugger is huge for this. Again, once you've searched the source code and found like, okay, it's acting on, like when it's doing something I want to do something like, or where I want to change, you search for it in your code, go open it up in your IDE, put the breakpoint there. I think it's not really going to come as news to anyone, but DDev is the move for getting a local development environment going where you can have a debugger running. It makes it so much easier. Then I'd say Drupal forms and issues, and Drupal, and then Drupal Stack Exchange, and the rest of the internet and code search and graph that we left over. And I do say, like, if you can find an example in other contributed code, that's usually better than Drupal core, because there are still some things that Drupal core does that it doesn't let everything else do. If you find it but there's two parts of Drupal core, so actually that only counts for like the Drupal code in like libraries, like /lib, right in under web core. And even there, if it's in a plugin, if it's in a service, if it's in a block, if it's basically in any normal place, you can pull it out and do the same thing in your module. But Drupal core also has a whole huge number of modules. And if you can find it in there, it's going to work exactly the same in your module. But there's just a few areas of Drupal that are either like Drupal's way of doing it is not the modern Drupal way because no one's looked at that module in a long time. There's less and less of that because they're sort of kicking the modules out, like form is going to be gone in Drupal 11. And so it'll be modernized outside of Drupal. But the user module is like that for a long time. It still sort of is. It's just like there's code there that's like 18 years old, and that's not the code you want to copy. So basically to summarize, what module to make, one you need, one not already made. And again, calling modern Drupal anything from Drupal 8 on, but at this point, you're really talking about Drupal 10 on. So you can start by writing up what you plan to do. This is groups.drupal.org is lesser used. This particular group is lesser used. Just write it down somewhere. This is one place to do it if you don't have anywhere else. It's public. Like, write down what you're planning to do. Get all those keywords that you search for when trying to find a contrib module into that post. And now you also have something like you can share the link to when you're asking questions in Slack or somewhere else in forums to get feedback on. File issues for your own modules is really big, and I'm trying to think if what's that? Screwed up the image. But yeah, file issues for your own modules. It's in the blog post. I might not put it in the presentation, but one surprising barrier to make a contributing module is figuring out where to do it on Drupal.org. So the trick is that it's a Drupal site, and so you can go to /node/add and see all of the stuff you've been building into. I honestly don't know how to find the add a module link on Drupal.org. I just tried again, like really quickly to be like, here's the path to do it. And it's like, I don't know. I just had Drupal.org/node/add, I think it's /project-module or something like that, like in my browser history for so long, like that's just where I go. But you can go to Drupal.org/node/add and be all the content you can create, including documentation, contribution guides, but one of them is going to be a module project. And so you can create that. And you have the option to make it a sandbox project to start. You still want to be careful with the name. You don't want it to change later. And at least Drupal used to claim the namespace when you create a sandbox. I don't think it does anymore. But you still want to be thoughtful about what machine name you're giving your module. So sandbox projects, anybody can do. You have to jump through some hoops still to make a contrib module. I have been fighting to lower those hoops for a long time, but the fact that you can now make a sandbox module, like you can get your code out there, you can start using it. And I have, if you can make a full project, you can have a release made, and you can just include that code in your project. Like you can write in your composer.json, you can just say get the dev version of my code, like just literally copy what the Drupal project page gives you for how to download this module for your dev release, and that is going to be an actual Git repo. If you allow Composer to get Git repos, and you can just contribute right from there. So like you're using the same version of the module that the world is using. There's no like extra steps to get it back. You make a commit, you push, it goes up to Drupal level. So there's no reason not to do that early while developing. It can be a sandbox module, and you can promote it to better later. And the other advantage to this is like as soon as you create the module, you can start filing issues for your own modules. It helps you think through what you're planning to do. It makes features and bugs more discoverable by other people. If you do not get to it right away, there is a chance someone else will. And you and anyone else who helps gets Drupal.org issue credit for that. You get 0 credit for contributing the module in the first place. So just for your own benefit and visibility on Drupal.org, file issues, but it really does help you think through what you're trying to do when you're forced to put it in words, and usually helps you figure out where to look for the solution. It's just another example of get in there. All right. Another simple module, legend. That's the typo. Again, I just do all the version requirements. Scroll over here. And so this is the, whereas we use the hook to do the form alter, this is an example of a plugin. So the namespace at the top is our own module. It is always important when you are copying and pasting code from other modules to make that change. So this is if we had a module named copyright. It's always Drupal first, then your module name, and this is the part that what you steal it from. So like this is when you're looking at another module, or in Drupal core, there's a system module, and it will have a subdirectory called source, src. And so that's where your stuff goes. So if you're looking in source, there will be then a subfolder called plugin and another folder for blog. So this namespace is exactly where it physically lives in the code, except that the source hat has been hidden. And so every block has a build function, and that's the only function that you need. And this one is a little bit made up. You can use token module and things like that to do this, but it is still surprising it's not easier to just have the current year in your footer. And if you want to make a super system custom module for it, you can. And it's just a PHP date formatter. They get it as the year and pass it in. And all these kinds of things like using T for translate, you're going to see in most every module you steal code from. So that's an example of plugins. Hooks are magic portals that let any module appear in another part of Drupal and do something. And this is old school Drupal, like this is the way Drupal made it so you could extend the code and be modular before like sort of the modern ideas of services and plugins sort of made it into most other PHP projects. More technically, a hook is tied to some sort of Drupal event as an opportunity for a module to take action. There are 251 plus hooks in Drupal 7 core. After a concerted effort in development of Drupal 8 to remove hooks and replace them with more modern and widespread outside Drupal programming practices such as plugins and services, there are now 288. So to be fair, like we moved some big contributed modules like views into Drupal core at that same era. But even after that, we've added 25 hooks to Drupal core since like we moved everything in. So and only deprecated 9 that were, it is slightly old numbers, but hooks are still very much a part of Drupal. And every contributed module can also provide hooks. So they're not going anywhere. There are some modules that if you prefer the more modern ways, like actually like let you create object-oriented code that that sort of does the hook invocations for you. But yeah, it's for just a few of the main hook use cases, but there's still nothing wrong with hooks. So they work by naming convention. To implement a hook, take the hook part off of the hook name and replace it with your module's machine name. And that's sort of what we've shown before. There are, it's always good to sort of start with the most base hooks. So hook, form, alter will work on every form. And so you can, put it in there. You can put print statement in there, or you can run your IDE and you can see what the form ID is. And then you can use a more specific hook, like form ID alter, which is what we started this presentation. But when you're trying to figure out which hook to use, you can use the base thing. So. To look up hooks and most everything else, you can start at Drupal's API. So for API, and this link will be in the blog post, and these slides are clickable links when you have them on your computer. Drupal's API reference is also a great place to get an overview. And that's just API/Drupal/ whatever version of Drupal you're looking at. And you can go straight to 11.x just so that you're not getting anything that's already deprecated. Be removed. So key hooks include hook form alter, hook entity extra field info. So we'll talk about a field where site builders can use in entity view modes. Combine data format display, and this is where I recommend using the extra field module. And then all of the hooks are at this link, api.drupal.org/API Drupal core. Exclamation point core.api PHP group hooks. And these links will be there. And I will, this is something we can all go through when we're looking at making a module. Drupal has initial documentation of making a module. We can make sure it links to these key APIs, which I don't think it currently does. And I will try to go back, but as you're trying to do that, you can go for it. So when you're searching online for stuff, you will also end up back at api.drupal.org a lot. Drupal.org inadvertently for quite a while treated 8.2 as the end-all and be-all version of Drupal. And this is mitigated, but Google is still likely to take you to 8.2. So when you get to an older version of a hook, just change that part of the path in the URL, or tell it to switch to a different version, and switch to the version you're using when the latest version of Drupal. Search for the rest of the internet, DuckDuckGo. You can do a /G for Google results. That sort of gives a really easy way for you to use two different search engines, and they get very different results, surprisingly different results. And which one is better, varies by the day. So I start with DuckDuckGo for privacy, do !G to have Google results still private there. Is worth searching for specific blogs and your own notes. Subscribing to the Drupal Planet in the RSS feeder, or just going to drupal.org/planet is a good idea. There was just now at the top of the planet a good, you can have technology copy for you. You can burn down some rainforests to have ChatGPT do the copying for you. But there's also, Josh generators to do it. But I usually just copy from a module that I know is something like I want and make changes in people. So I figured out if I'm over time.
Console.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I'll take questions now, and we can go deeper into any specific kind of what you want, but thank you.
And the new object-oriented hook, auto-wired hook services thing, how's that gonna change this, the new, that's in 11.1?
I don't even know.
Okay.
I just know that they've been trying to get rid of hooks for forever, and the way they work stays the same, so I think that's gonna continue.
Okay.
But I got looking for that. But yeah, it's, Drupal made a commitment when it switched to Drupal 8 that it would not destroy all your previous code anymore. So it's really nice that generally when you have a module, you're just declaring that it's compatible with the next version of Drupal rather than having to do major rewrites. And this is another big benefit to contributing. When it's out there, there's an automatic upgrade bot that comes along, looks at your code, and will be like, yes, we changed this core service from, what did they do? But it was basically like, we're going to take the underscore dot, like entity. What the heck was it? I have to fix it in a million modules. But anyway, like it was entity dot some service around entities, and then it changed to like entity underscore service, and then the action. And it's just like whatever meaningless change as far as you're really concerned, and the bot helps automate that process and just feedback.
Yeah, I used that to fix a module that was basically abandoned, and I was able to just download the thing and catch it myself locally.
Awesome. Have you pushed it back up in an issue for it yet?
No, I did not do that.
Please do. Because then the bot will run for you for the next one.
Well, to be honest, I actually don't understand the new flow on Drupal, so I stopped for a second and I just, that would be a good session sometime.
Yeah, I actually regret not focusing more on that because I feel that is a bit of a blocker. The key is to treat it as your own repository, because it actually is. I wish Drupal had used GitLab's merge workflow, where you are in a branch of the main module, but it actually, each issue fork, you just say create issue fork on an issue, and it makes a clone of the whole repository. And so the key is that you have to, you sort of want to have both repos in your thing, but whatever. You basically can git clone the issue, and then you switch to a branch in addition to that, and then you're good to go. That's really all there is to it, and you just have to follow the steps it gives you, and it breaks into 3 things. But when you're on an issue, create issue fork, and then copy the commands, and you're good to go. But it is way more confusing than it needs to be.
Just wondering, for the debugging you're talking about, did there any like tools, plugin tools you prefer or use can?
Yes, that is another one I wish I'd put in. So let's see. I know PHP MyAdmin is great, and DDEV cron is great. And I thought there was one specifically for integrating with the debuggers, but I know it was built in. So I'm not seeing it, and I know it works everywhere. So maybe I think the debugger plugin is actually, there's a DDEV plugin in VS Code.
Yeah.
So if you have VS Code, you add the DDEV plugin. That's it. You don't need anything on the DDEV side. So VS Code and DDEV, the VS Code with the DDEV plugin, and then DDEV with the cron plugin I like, and the PHP MyAdmin. That's the one down.
I was just gonna say on that note, I'm a big fan of, there's develop bug log and develop Kim extras. That if you use those together directly within Drupal, you can get a lot.
Basically, IDE. Yeah. Doing more theme development, I'm becoming a fan of the Drupal's like theme building IDE right in it. So I mean, honestly, I should have covered that in the how not to build a module, like find out what template something's in. If you can just override that template, it's just for one site, you're done. You don't need it. Yeah, that's why I mostly use those tools, but thank you.